also starting in the 40s using mercury everywhere. The very earliest autism cases were called Kanner's syndrome because of a doctor who discovered 8 patients who all had, he took care of a lot of kids, and he found this new syndrome that he was seeing about their behavior. They had lost their ability to speak. They had all kinds of problems. And in almost every case, the father was working with mercury, or mercury was being used in agriculture at that time. Mercury was like this, this wonder product because it's effing effective, that's for sure. It does shit. And so it was in a lot of things. So mercury is part of a lot of neurological injuries. And it's, go on ChatGPT and say, should I breathe mercury fumes? No. Should I eat it? Touch it? No, no, no. Should I inject it? Pause, pause, pause. Well, in childhood vaccines. It's just ridiculous. I got a quick one I want to tell you. So I'm going to get a lot of shit, obviously, for this. And what's the main criticism you and I are both going to get? I'm not a doctor.
Right.
I'm not a scientist. As I mentioned, I'm a criminologist, and I speak English, and I read very well. And so in this book, I put together the information that anybody can get and put all the citations there. But what parents often don't know is that this brand, vaccine good, disease bad, there's a ruse in there. There's a marketing ruse, which is that if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to get that disease. It is absolutely impossible for your kid to get all of those diseases or be exposed to all of those diseases. And what Humphreys didn't talk about with you, but she knows, is that all of the childhood vaccine diseases, all of them, the survival rate for a healthy American child is 100%. All of them.
Yeah, that's inconvenient, right? The measles.
Well, let me do measles real quick because for 22 years, we didn't have a single measles death in the United States. For 22 years. And this is really interesting math. I hope people will take this one on board. The death rate for vaccinated children with measles is 0. And the death rate for unvaccinated children, of which there are 9 million in America, is 0.
But
meaning the unvaccinated and the vaccinated both have the same death rate, 0.
But people have died from measles.
Yes, people have died from measles. But all of these diseases, the death rates that are the scariest are old death rates, right? First of all, measles was in descent anyway up until, as it headed into the 80s. It was already going from, up here to down here on the graph.
Why is that?
Indoor plumbing, better nutrition. The same thing that helped with almost every disease. Here, Texas
announces second death.
But this is 2024, and what I said was in the 22 years before that, there had not been a death.
So what's causing these kids to die?
Well, it's I don't know if you've had Pierre Corey on or other people, and I'm not. This would be a medical question about whether these kids actually died of measles or died of poor medical care.
Died with measles.
Yeah, died with measles, et cetera.
By the way, other comorbidities? These kids?
Well, they had bad treatment. It's a question for like somebody like Pierre Corey. I'm going to back away from the question. And by the way, let's own it. Let's say, they died of measles. If that's true, then in 24 years, 2 kids died of measles. You know what the death rate is for kids from tetanus, for example? The risk is that 1 in every 154 million Americans, children, will die from tetanus. And if you want to make those odds better with a vaccine, more power to you. But 1 in 154 million is pretty damn good odds.
And then again, very important what you said, that it can be taken, the vaccine can be taken once you have contracted tetanus.
Well, no, once you've got the injury. You don't have to wait. If you've got the injury, but there's a ruse here, which is that deep puncture wounds does not mean tetanus.
Right.
You got to search for it, and as you'll see in this book, the chart that shows the prevalence of tetanus in the world is an interesting one. But I want to just quickly talk about this because I'm ready for the shit that I'm not a doctor and I shouldn't be saying any of this. My view is not only should I be saying it, but I should be doing exactly what I've done for my whole career, which is investigating matters and telling the truth. And I'm not even, by the way, an anti-vaxxer. I think there's one vaccine I think is a great product, by the way, the BCG vaccine, which is for tuberculosis. It is used in almost every country on earth. It's 100 years old, and it has other health benefits. It helps with other respiratory problems, and it helps with bladder cancer. It has all kinds of benefits. Guess what country it's not used in?
The United States of America?
That's a good guess, Joe. The United States of America. And why? Because the...
Can I guess?
Yeah, please.
Will the patents run out?
It might be another reason, by the way. You might be on something. No, they would say, well, there isn't that much tuberculosis, but there's 9,000 cases a year.
Versus tetanus.
Versus tetanus with 13 cases every 10 years.
I don't think most people know that tetanus is a bacteria.
Yeah, it's not transmissible. And many vaccines don't stop transmission anyway. By the way, I'm not saying they all don't work. I'm just saying you have to make a decision. Like, imagine this. Some parents don't want their kids to play football because they might have a head injury, right? But if the government mandated that you play football, we'd all be pretty pissed off. Parents decide whether their kids can, take the bike out after sundown, whether they can sleep over at somebody's house. They make all these decisions about safety, but they give over this vaccine decision as if it's not their business. Right. And, something that Bobby Kennedy is pushing for and I think will accomplish is called joint decision making. And that is that the parent and the pediatrician will decide together on whether or not vaccines, when to give them, how many, which type, et cetera. Guess who opposes that? The pediatricians. Right?
They don't because of financial incentives?
Holy shit, yes. When I was a kid, I went to the pediatrician. Well, first of all, I went to the doctor once. I broke my foot. If you didn't have vaccines and Bobby's wellness checks and little Jamie's wellness checks that are necessary, that they bring you in to get the vaccines, pediatricians would have to have second jobs, because most kids, particularly when they're younger and they're not yet affected by all the environmental toxins, most kids are pretty healthy. Obviously, that's less true today than it was when I was a kid. But I want to share something that I'm itching to get out, because most people just don't know much about vaccines, and there's information that's all available through CDC and FDA, et cetera, that I want to share if you give me permission.
Sure.
Okay. So how does it start? Vaccine, it means, it started from the word cow, vaca, it meant cow. So they would take pus, cow pus. You don't want to waste that stuff. And they would rub that into wounds on people. And then they decided, maybe we can put horse pus and cow pus from an infected horse's hoof. We'll rub that in. And they tried that. And for a long time, they were experimenting with all these things. Some old-timey vaccines were made by, I'm going to read it so I get it right, steeping them for years in a mix of ox bile and glycerin and potato slices. Sounds like a joke, right? But it's true. But science moved on, and it evolved to where vaccines included dried rabbit spinal cords, duck embryos, chicken blood, human bile, because you don't want to waste that, ground up rat spleens, and boiled pig skin. So that's old-time vaccines before we knew anything about anything. So let's switch to the modern-day vaccines, because obviously now we're real smart and we know a lot of stuff. Well, here is what's in your childhood vaccines right now. Gelatin from boiled pigskin, kind of like the old one. Chicken embryo protein. Blood from the hearts of cow fetuses. DNA fragments from human fetuses. Oil extracted from shark livers, I mentioned earlier. Proteins from worm ovaries, because you don't want to leave that out. And, of course, DNA fragments from monkey kidneys. Now, if that doesn't sound like a Shakespeare play, that eye of newt, toe of frog, lizard's leg, tongue of dog. When I hear that thing from Macbeth, I literally, can't you just picture Gates and Offit and Hotez sitting around in their witch's brew putting this stuff together? I know I'm talking fast. I'm almost done. The other modern ingredients in childhood vaccines. This is what you are giving if you trust the vaccine manufacturers. Formaldehyde, we already know that's bad. Polysorbate 80, which is linked to infertility. And my absolute favorite, potassium chloride. Why is this my favorite? Because that is the chemical that is injected as the third injection in lethal injections by executioners. Now, admittedly, infants get far less of it than people who are executing, but we really want to be injecting any amount of that into human beings. Sodium borate, Triton X, that's what's in spermicides, and of course, until very recently, ethyl mercury.
And what is the reason why they have so many different ingredients?
So I got it in this. I got it in this book. Holding up, shameless plug. I got it in this book because it's too long for now. But they have. You can get it from ChatGPT. They have, what I would have to call a kind of insane reason for each of these. Right? I mean, you just heard what they are. I mean, they're nuts. And people say, well, I'm not a scientist. You don't realize how very important each one of those ingredients is. Well, I do realize something, and I don't have to be a scientist. I don't want mercury injected into my kids.